Welcome to another use for the indirect format. You've already had lots of experience with direct format when you did your payroll assignment and when you requested a favor, a direct request favor, and you've also tried an indirect request for something above and beyond the normal. Now we're going to take the indirect format to the denying request stage. In other words, we're delivering bad news. We are not going to do what they have asked us to do. Okay, just a quick review. You remember your basic strategy, when to use direct. You use direct when you expect no resistance. You think it's a no-brainer, totally within your rights to ask. But you use the indirect when you expect resistance, as in denying a request. You don't want them to feel bad, but you're not giving them the answer that they desire. And for those visual learners out there, my artistes, you will recall that direct is like a pizza with all the information right on top in the first sentence of the first paragraph and in the subject line. Whereas indirect is more like a hamburger. We're going to bury the meat of our message in the middle paragraph, and we're going to try to give them some extra condiments like lettuce, tomatoes, and pickles, or in this case maybe coupons and goodwill. The approach to this one is going to be somewhat different. Because we are responding to someone else, we will start with what do they want. I want to be really clear on what they are asking me, because nothing is more frustrating than having your original main question sidestepped altogether when you receive a letter. And then I'll ask myself, what can I give them? This will be critical in the middle paragraph to balancing out our bad news. When can I give it? Again, specificity equals sincerity. And if you want to build teams and build goodwill, you will want to be sincere. And then finally, how am I going to leave them feeling important? We want them to walk away with something, even if we have to deny them. Okay, to do this, you're going to need some special tricks, and you will find these on pages 152 and 153 in your business communications book. You have been emphasizing things just by where you place them. So, for instance, when you wanted the action and the deadline to stand out, you put them in the very first part and in the very last part. And you emphasize things with your bullets. So now we have some bad news. We're denying a request. So we need to de-emphasize it. That means we're going to put it in the middle of the middle paragraph as far as we can bury it. And we're going to use some special verbiage. Passive voice simply means no one is responsible for the action, whereas active voice is somebody does something. So, for instance, if I have bad news about having to pay more for benefits, I would probably not come right out and say, you will pay $1,000 more, because then people will be resistant and probably pretty angry with me. So I need to soften that a bit by just saying, and I shouldn't even say your benefits, I should just say the benefits have changed. Just to warn them some bad news is coming, but it's not my fault. I didn't cause it. It just happened. So you will see words like have and has in passive voice. A good time to use this also is when you're trying to build teams and you don't want to point any fingers at somebody. So instead of saying John made a mistake, we would say an error was made. No, it's nobody's fault. It just kind of happened, right? Even better is to skip the whole error part and go straight to the solution, in which case you can go active because you want to take credit for good things. So we fixed it. We found the solution. We corrected the issue, and now it's all better. So passive voice is like an act of nature. No one is responsible. God just said so. It is so. As opposed to sounding active, like we can or we have or we will do it. So you're going to use this in your memos when you get to the bad news. Instead of saying we can't afford it, which is very active, you will want to use the it will not be possible. It's not my fault. It just isn't possible. It is an act of nature, or God said so, right? It just can't happen. And that will be your strongest tool yet. Our special aids positive language. We've been working on this every single week. And here's how to make bad news sound more positive. You will never say, and I mean never, sorry. You will never apologize, and you will avoid using unfortunately. And you say, well, how can I do this? And you'll know what I mean when you sit down to write it. These words are going to pop right out. And you will remember this lesson, and you will say, oh, yeah, there's an alternative. Why don't you say, I'm sorry? Well, you may feel that's totally appropriate. You may even feel as the recipient you want to hear I'm sorry. But that's not what you really want to hear. What you want to hear is that it's not going to happen again, or that there's a solution. Here's how we fixed it. So every time we say we're sorry or unfortunately, we are just bringing them right back to the painfulness of the bad news. Instead of saying we apologize for the inconvenience, which is not only cliche, but bringing attention to the fact that we made a mistake or something is being denied, we'll go straight to what we can do for them. We can offer you a 20% discount on your next purchase. Think about what would make them feel better and keep that relationship. Even if I were denying requests for credit, you never know when that person is going to turn their finances around and become a multimillionaire who wants to borrow all kinds of money. So you always want to keep your relationships as best you can, even in the denial phase. I won't say I am sorry for the mistake. Instead, I will say what I did about it. I met with our processing department, and the improvements to our system will be made immediately. So I fixed the problem. I'm not going to say unfortunately, because that just says red flag, see, it's bad news, look at this, look at this. We don't want to do that. We want to show them what we can do for them. So here's the word you can use for it, although. Although it will not be possible, there's that passive voice, to speak at your event, I have, so the other side of this sentence is what I will do for you. I have included the number of a very knowledgeable speaker. I gave an alternative in the second half of that. Good. You now have everything you need to be able to complete your assignment. Okay, now you're ready to write it. And you're going to do so by denying a request to poor Robert. This is the same question that you just used to create an indirect. You revised it as an indirect request. And now you're going to pretend that Robert didn't revise it, and you're responding to Robert. You're his boss, and you're responding to him, and you have to say no. To do so, you will use the indirect format. And that's because we want to keep him on board and we kind of like him. And you will use the memo format. And it dawned on me that you don't really understand the difference between a letter and a memo yet. And the only difference is we use letters when we're communicating outside of our organization. We use memos when we're communicating within our organization. And the only time that gets tricky is if you have, for instance, a department that's located in California or Germany. That would still be a memo format because it is part of your organization. Conversely, if you have a company with whom you work regularly, maybe even daily, maybe it's even housed inside your building, but they are technically a different organization, you would address that as a letter format. Now that we use email, it's pretty much a moot point. Everything comes out more the memo format in email. So we're going to be using memo format. We're going to go indirect, and you will, of course, need a buffer then. You can see wonderful examples of those on pages 254 through 255. And then you will have to transition into your bad news. So your buffer is your top bun, and the meat's going to go way in the middle of the middle paragraph. And to do that, you will transition, and the back end of that paragraph should be your alternatives. You can also put your alternatives in your close. And I'm going to ask you to add a little warm fuzzy for our friend Robert, because we can't really offer him a coupon or a discount on anything. So let's tell him how much he is appreciated and encourage his creativity. All right, you have everything you need to complete the assignment. And if you need me or further clarification, you can email me or give me a call. Good.